Dutch cruisers and their airstrikes have finally made their way into World of Warships Legends. Today, we're going to go over everything you need to know about these lines, what you need to do to take advantage of their unique airstrike capabilities, and also cover the admittedly convoluted system that you need to partake in order to get these ships in early access, and what it will ultimately end up costing you if you want to take home this ship right here, Gouden Leeuw, or the Golden Lion. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit the subscribe button, and let's go ahead and just dive on in. And as always, when we start with one of these early access lines, there's a way that World of Warships Legends is going to monetize it. Now, hopefully, if you're watching this in the future, you don't have to worry about this, but let's go ahead and talk through how you get the tech tree ships. First off, some of them are available today, not in early access at all. If you head over to the ships tabs, you'll see tier 1 and tier 2 Java are available for you just to play. As far as how these ships perform, they're just low tier cruisers. Nothing real special there. If you want to obtain ships if you want to obtain the tier 3 through the tier 8 though, you have two options to do it. The first one is through just purchasing wonderful Dutch cruiser crates. And I say wonderful, but they're not really wonderful. I'll go ahead and throw up the percentage chance of getting everything here. And spoiler alert, they are not good. You have a 5% chance to get the tier 4, a 2.5% chance to get the tier 5, a 0.02% chance to get the tier 6, a 0.01% chance to get the tier 7, and a 0.01% chance to get a previous campaign ship, the D7 Provinciën. So that's how you can maybe secure those ships through there. The other option is these random bundles, and I have a feeling a lot more people are going to partake in the random bundles, or at least the whales are, because they contain this event's unique currency, the Gulden. The Gulden is what is used to ultimately obtain the legendary Golden Lion. I know this is dumb and convincing, or dumb and just weird, but within these random bundles, you can obtain all of the early access ships and the DE7. Of the bundles that are in the game, I would say about 17 of them are good, worth the 750 doubloon cost for them, and then the other 63 are complete and utter trash. If you have any of these bundles on the first page, I would say go in, pick them up. And then the only bundles worth it on the second page are these top two. Everything else I would try to steer clear of, but you won't be able to if you want the Golden Lion. So let's go ahead and talk through how much the Golden Lion is. You can obtain the Guldens in a couple of forms. They do have some that are for free. So if you complete the campaign without the Admiralty backing, you're looking at 1,500 Guldens. If you also complete all of the Dutch Legacy calendar, the event calendar that is going on right now, that will award you 3,000 Gulden. So, hey, that's 4,500 Gulden for free. You only need to scrounge through the sofa to pick up 19,000 more. If you buy the campaign, that's going to get you 1,500 additional Gulden, bringing down the total that you need to 17,500 with about a $10 spend. So you with me so far? I'll go ahead and throw my math notes up here because this was all the math I had to do in order to figure this out for y'all. You have to get the remaining 17,500 Gulden from these random bundles. Each bundle has 250 Gulden in it. So 17,500 divided by 250, that gives you 70 bundles that you need to pick up. 70 times the 750 doubloon cost is 52,500 doubloons that you are going to need in the war chest in order to pick up the Golden Lion. And word to the wise here, the Golden Lion, we both know and don't know that it's going to be exclusive. We don't know the window for exclusivity, but we've been told it is going to be like the Louisiana. Louisiana has a 1-year exclusivity window to it, so don't feel pressure that this ship will never come back. It'll just be a year exclusive to the whales out there. Anyways, so we need 52,500 doubloons in order to pick this monstrosity up. Well, if we head on over to the doubloons tab, well, we're going to have to start off with 47,500 doubloons from the $150 bundle. That will get us down to only needing 5,000 more doubloons for another $20. So if you add up the price of the campaign and the $20 bundle and the $150 bundle, you're looking at $180 in order to secure yourself the legendary tier ship for a year of early access. Is that worth it to you? Probably not, which is why I would kind of just choose to steer clear of purchasing out the Golden Lion. With that said, of course, we will cover it in this video, but before we do that, let's start talking about the lower tier ships first, and then we will cover this Golden Lion. And first, I want to start off with one of the lower tier ships. Let's take the tier 4 Celebes. I'm just choosing it because, well, it looks like a Zeton. From tier 4 and down, these cruisers aren't too special. They have no airstrike ability, which is kind of their creme de la creme, the thing that makes them unique. So as far as a commander would go, I would recommend Carl Dorman, just because of this last skill. They have somewhat rapid firing guns, so this is somewhat useful. When you're working your way up, I would kind of go over to fully packed or buy the book, not taking the air support one, but given the prevalence of air support, I want to leave him the way he is. My inspirations on Dorman are as follows: Mikawa and Mimbelli. Once you get to tier 5, though, in the line, that's when they add the airstrike. I think the most fun of the light cruiser sort of variants of these ships, the ones that you would use Carl Dorman with, is going to be the tier 6. One thing to note, if you've gotten very used to De Seven Provincian, it has 3 airstrikes that you are able to use with it. Once you get the airstrikes, the tier 5 and tier 6 ships have 1 airstrike each, and the rest of the line only has 2, and the airstrikes are a bit different. We'll cover that a little bit later. But now let's go ahead and cover the Eendracht, and we're going to go a little more in depth with it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the stats so you can get an idea of what the light cruiser bit of these ships are like. So our loadout, we have 35,800 hit points with an armor thickness between 10 and 100 millimeters and a 19% torpedo reduction. If we go ahead and take a look at the armor, it's nothing too special, right? It's fairly light, 16 millimeters up front. We have a little bit of side plating, but overall, we have a fairly submerged citadel that's kind of difficult to hit, and you're going to be playing these a bit at range, so it's okay. You have 75 millimeters of side plating that you can use to bounce some things, but you need to be very well angled, and as you can see, that side plating doesn't go all the way up the side of the ship, so some shells are definitely able to slip in. As far as the aircraft go, they have 2,000 hit points, and the maximum bomb damage is 5,800, and they have 6 bombs each, which can be pretty devastating. The guns, this is where, this is kind of the reason why we end up using good old Dorman, is because of these guns. 152 millimeters, 2 3-barreled, 2 2-barreled with a 7.6 second reload. That is 6 plus 4, that's 10 shells flying down range. The important part of Carl Dorman is his unique skill. Each main battery shell, torpedo, or bomb hit by your cruiser resulting in damage increases subsequent damage to the same ship by up to 50%. This is great. If you have a higher fire rate ship and you can get some small chip damage done, your bombs will do massive damage. Also, those shells will tick up more and more in damage. So for these lighter cruisers, the ones that have more rapid firing guns, Dorman is going to be the commander you want to run. AA, pretty good, not the best. I think everyone kind of got spoiled with DE7 as far as, oh man, these are the best cruisers there are. They have to be the best of AA, and they're pretty decent, right? 386 is nothing to laugh at, but it's only a 3.5 kilometer range on it, so not the best there. Maneuverability, 34.5 knots, which is pretty decent, 720 meter turning circle, and a 9-second rudder shift time. Finally, concealment. This is the strong suit of these vessels as well. They are very well concealed. 8.7 kilometer detectability by sea, 5.8 by air, and 5.3 while firing in smoke. As far as our upgrades go, in this first one, we're running aiming system mod 1. Then on the light cruisers, I'm liking prop mod, and then finally concealment mod, because we're gonna buff the strengths of it. So as far as consumables go, we have the damage control party. We have the sonar, which 3 kilometer range by torpedo, 4 kilometer for ship, 100-second duration, and you get 2 charges. And then finally, you get a choice between catapult fighter and enhanced AA. I would probably stick with defensive AA. I just forgot to change it in the game that you see. But with all that said, let's go ahead and dive on into a game. So welcome to Two Brothers. We are heading out to the flank with good old Eendracht. These ships are kind of weird in how you have to play them. First thing you will notice is they have very good concealment. And as a result, you're able to get to positions that otherwise you probably would have been exposed, or you risk the chance of exposure when using pretty much any other ship. What that means is you're able to kind of come out here and just start plinking away at the enemy. The one thing you kind of have to keep in mind or play around is the range of your airstrike. You're going to see we're basically pretty much useless as far as our airstrike goes, because the enemy team is just a bit too far away. So we are going to end up relying on guns for the majority of this match, just because that's what we have the range to use. As far as the ballistic characterizations of the light cruisers for the Dutch, I think they do pretty well, right? These aren't too floaty. They're getting over this island here. You can see we're just now starting to hit the island, and we're not too far away from it. So as far as ballistics go, the shells fly at a decent rate of speed. They get to the enemy fairly well. The dispersion can sometimes leave something to be desired, and you'll see a lot where it almost feels like the shells are falling short. But that's just because we are engaging these enemies at the farthest reach of the range of this ship, and these ships very much, they thrive when being pushed into. They, when ships push into them, they're able to basically extend the range of the airstrike, because if someone's sitting still, they are at that fixed range. But if they're pushing into you, then in a couple of seconds, they may be within your airstrike range, and you're able to lead them into your airstrike, if that makes sense. These ships are definitely ones that, thrive when they get pushed into, but that's something we've seen with a lot of the more recent cruiser line introductions, right? The Pan-Asian cruisers, the light Japanese cruisers, and now the Dutch cruisers. So the Dutch do have a bit of a special thing, because for the other two lines that we just mentioned, they have torpedoes, right? And the torpedoes, they have a fixed kind of way that they can be fired. Terrain on the map dictates whether you're able to engage an enemy who is pushing into you, because, there's islands, and islands get in the way. But an example like this, where, we would not be able to engage a Samagi with torpedoes, right? there's just no way. But we can attempt to engage him with an airstrike. I think he ends up turning a little too early. He was right at the edge of our range. But you get the idea here, where the Dutch cruisers are now probably the best at being able to punish people who push, which isn't great, I will say, because, you know, my hope was the airstrike would very much help with island camping, and it feels like these will end up not being able to assist with that. So that's where we are with that. Anyways, this Amagi has pushed into us, so we're going to go ahead and get ready to start engaging him. We're going to turn on out. Our great concealment allows us to turn out. And now we're just going to start engaging and getting those rounds to land on him. Of course, remember, for each shell that does damage, we're going to boost the overall damage of the shells and the upcoming bomb strike by 0.75% all the way up to 50%. So we can go ahead and get a pretty powerful bomb strike, kind of like queued up. It's like charging up a large airstrike, because, you know, we're getting some consistent hits here. I think at this point we're at about 13 or 14 bonus percent extra damage, which is nothing to scoff at it in this game. Amagi goes straight into the airstrike, and you know, a pretty decent chunk there with 6 hits, and now a double fire. This also now comes as one of the things that you're going to notice with these Dutch cruisers. They are incredibly effective at setting fires, especially with those bombs. So it will become incredibly important for the battleships out there to set, to have fight fire with fire. And the reason for that is, you know, I've had bomb strikes and I've walked out with four fires. If they have fight fire with fire, fires get put out, no problem. If they don't have fight fire with fire, well, they just kind of burn to the ground, and there's nothing they can do about it. As we pick up an arsonist right there on the Amagi. At this point, you know, we've taken out that Amagi, but if you notice, there's someone kind of pushing down middle, which is an interesting choice. The enemy Saipan pushing middle. I'll remind you, Saipan is one of those aircraft carriers that does not have secondaries. It is pushing into our Azure lane Formidable, which I've played one match in Formidable. I played it on stream. You're more than welcome to go check that one out, but it is an absolutely terrible aircraft carrier. Don't pick it up. I don't recommend it at all. It is rough, but Formidable does have secondaries of its own. So, an interesting strategy for this Saipan. You can see we're kind of holding off. I was really hoping to be able to airstrike this Saipan. I'm not going to lie. But as it became clear that we weren't going to be able to do that, we're going to go ahead and open up. I just wanted to be, you know, we're out in open water. I wanted to be cautious about crossing and potentially getting hit by another large salvo. But this Saipan is being absolutely demolished by a combination of us and it looks like the Formidable's bombers or someone's bombers. And he's going to go ahead and head out of this match. As far as what's next for us, I think mid is probably going to be our best bet. It does look like 2 of their ships are going to be pushing down the middle. And as a result, the only surface ship being that Saipan that is kind of directly in the area, probably not the best bet as far as who should be defending the middle. So we're going to attempt to go in and pick him up. Also, if we can get in close, we should be able to use our airstrike to assist with knocking out some more of the enemy without having to have us have direct line of sight on them. And, you know, get the use of this airstrike one more time. Chumfon and our other cruiser kind of duking it out here. He ends up going down, sadly. We only get the assist medal, but, you know, we haven't really been doing much damage. And now we're down to a 2v5, and both of those seem like they want to push the middle. So let's go ahead and have some fun. One of the other things you may have noticed about the airstrikes in the game, or at least with the new cruiser line, if you already have the D7P, is the relatively large dispersion that they have. The D7P definitely has a more compact airstrike, where these new cruisers have a much wider area for these to land in, and this can be a good thing or a bad thing. It does mean that your ability to like hit destroyers with these airstrikes are much reduced. It was definitely something I struggled with, where I would have a destroyer that is sitting perfectly still. I know precisely where he is. He's sitting in his smoke, and he hasn't moved from when he dispersed his smoke, and you can see the shells are coming from the same exact place. You watch him, or even sometimes he's radared and he's not moving. And there are times where you just throw out the airstrike, and the shells just go all around him just because of the distribution of the shells. Now, it is a very nice carpet bomb that occurs. It's just that the gaps between the carpet bombs can be big enough for some ships to slip through, and it's just something you kind of have to be prepared for. That these are going to be most effective against battleships, moderately effective against cruisers, and very risky and may not pay off when going up against destroyers. So just something to be prepared for as an enemy D7 pops in, and he is going to face the wrath of it looks like 2 sets of airstrikes and our shells, and he's gonna end up having his day ended, leaving the enemy with just 1 more ship remaining. And well, it's a Massachusetts, and it looks like he's Austin Powers parked himself in the middle of the map. So we're gonna go ahead and push him. Of course, we don't have torpedoes, so this can be a little risky, but we have some decently fast firing guns, I would say, for what is a light cruiser. But given that he's parked like that, we should be able to go ahead and just target the nose of the Massachusetts. With the nose armor on most battleships, it's quite thin, and when you have a light cruiser, you can go and get full penetration damage up on the bow of the ship. So that's kind of going to be our plan here, is that Massachusetts is going to get focused on that other cruiser. His eyes are only going to be out to his starboard side. So we have free reign to come up and go ahead and just engage him on the port. And you can see we didn't lead this airstrike enough here. And we also totally missed, right? Like, the bow of the ship was in the area, was well within the strike area, but we ended up getting no hits. And that's just something you kind of have to live with some of these ships, especially at the lower tiers, because as you move up, the density of the bombs increases, but at the lower tiers, there are some fairly large gaps that even a battleship can go ahead and slip through. Anyways, we're going to come around the corner here and start engaging the nose of the Massachusetts and finish him off. So this has been the Eendracht, and like I said, the light cruiser playstyle for these ships, fairly fun, fairly a good time, and one that I think a lot of people are going to end up enjoying. Eendracht is probably my favorite just because it's the last of the light cruisers, so you get that rapid firing nature out of it. So that was the tier 6 Eendracht, and once you get used to it, once you play it, they're quite fun. But then you step up to the tier 7. You step up to Haarlem, and something different happens with Haarlem. Suddenly, the guns start firing a bit slower. You have fewer barrels, and the diameter of the guns goes up. And this is where you kind of want to make the jump to the commander that is available in the Advent calendar, Johan Fürstner. Johan is so weird and fun, and he has a great ability that you can build into if you have certain other commanders. It's just silly. So his base trait, Fire damage caused by your cruiser's shells or bombs, boosted. Excellent. Great. Damage over time buff, that's what you want to do with these cruisers. That's great. Art inspirations, Andre Lemonnier and Ivan B.D. Lightful. And you may notice there's something that these two commanders have in common. It's that they buff cruiser detectability time after firing your main gun. With them together, 35% reduction, which isn't anything to laugh at, but you'll see what we've done. Now, as far as the build for Fürstner goes, I think there's a couple of really good options. Burn It Down XXL or Beyond Range are both excellent. They just depend on how you want to play this. Given that I wanted to use the airstrikes a lot, I took away Beyond Range to kind of force me closer in. But with Burnt Down XXL and Igniter, getting an extra 5% fire chance with your guns, super useful. Look at Me Now can also be very useful just because concealment are these ships' strong suit, so really buffing into the concealment could do you wonders. After that, we get to his unique skill, Risk Theory. First, cruiser detectability time after firing main guns down by 22%. So 22% plus the already 35%. You're well over 50% there. And that means that we are going to drop off being spotted from firing our guns in now 8-9 seconds. Very powerful, very useful, and can be a little frustrating for enemies to have to deal with. Also, we're going to get a buff in cruiser detectability, and the damage our projectiles will do, as well as fire and flooding damage caused by them while your cruiser is undetected by enemy ships, will go up as well. So, a very fun build to be within concealment. Finally, we're using Iron Feathers. It's going to boost our maximum HP by a little bit and boost the aircraft, but we also get a radio locator, which is super useful. I'm kind of debating switching over to Fixated, and that's because of a weird quirk of this line. From tier 6 down, you have standard cruiser dispersion on these ships. However, once you hit Harlem and up, you get battle cruiser dispersion, and I think right now there's some times where it leaves a little to be desired, and maybe we should switch out that skill, but that's enough talk for another day. So what I'm really saying is there are a lot of build options with Fürstner, and I am quite enjoying playing him. We are also running the air support segment, though probably fully packed is the better one, though I like being able, when enemies are up close, to get that double airstrike kind of benefit from Fürstner. Outside of that, there is one other new commander that comes with the Dutch cruisers. We get basically the George Dewey of the Dutch. And that's going to be Hank Popper over here. He has a new base trait that just buffs shell damage, and then he has the standard kind of Dewey layout of skills. I wouldn't recommend using him on anyone, but I just wanted to go ahead and call out that he is there in case you want to use him, in case you need to use him. Cool. With that said, let's go ahead and dive on into the stats of this $180 cruiser. So first off, we are running Aiming System Mod 1, then we are running Steering Gears Mod 2, then Concealment Mod, and finally, the good old Main Battery Mod 3. As far as the consumables go, we have the standard damage control party, 5-second duration, 60-second reload. The sonar, 3.5 kilometer range on torpedoes, 5 for ships, 100-second duration, 2 charges, defensive AA, and then the repair party. The repair party, not the best, but hey, you take as much health as you can get. Stats of the vessel, 53,460 hit points with an armor thickness between 16 and 360 millimeters, with the torpedo damage reduction of 19%. The aircraft, the bombs, are going to do 6,500 damage apiece, and they are going to have 6 bombs in their payload. And look at the max speed. These planes come in fast, 234 knots. Artillery, 3 3-barrel 283 millimeter guns, i.e. Scharnhorst guns, with firing range of 16 kilometers, reload time 13.1, Fire setting chance, a 25% with the current build. The HE, 3,900 damage, which is okay. The AP slaps when you can use it in the right situation, 7,600 damage. AA, fairly strong, though it does feel a little limited at times. Firing range, 5.2 kilometers for that outer band and 3.5 kilometers for the inner band. Maneuverability, 33.5 knots, turning circle 790 meters, and a rudder shift time of 10.1 seconds. That is the reason we've gone with the rudder shift. It feels sluggish without it. I would recommend, especially because you end up kind of kiting with the ship a lot, the rudder shift is quite useful. Finally, concealment, 10.4 by rain, 10.4 by sea, 6.5 by air, and 8.9 when firing in smoke. And let's go ahead and take a look at the armor. As you can see, we have what I would call tier 6 battleship armor here, 25 millimeter front with an icebreaker hull, which is nice. We do also have a ton of armor on the sides that you can use to help ricochet kind of shells off. And then we have an above the line citadel, which absolutely can get touched by some fire, and you do need to be kind of cautious of enemy ships that take advantage of it. So that's the Golden Lion. Let's now go ahead and take a look at a game in her. So welcome to the Ring of Fire. Of course, Golden Lion being the legendary ship, we are going to have a very interesting game. Now, one sad bit of news is pretty much all of the footage for this had to be re-recorded. I streamed yesterday and didn't notice that the settings for the local recording were set to 1080p as opposed to the usual 4K on this channel. And as a result, I kind of had to throw out some of the best games that I had in Golden Lion, and then in the middle of the night, replay everything and try to get some footage. So do excuse, not the best games, but I think all of the games that we're showing, or that we've showed today, have some pretty good examples of these ships, and I hope you've enjoyed them so far. And also, what do you think of this new format where we're kind of covering the whole line by highlighting a couple of ships and making a very long video? Anyways, we have a Worcester and a Gdansk on our side. We're going to go ahead and try to start engaging the Gdansk as he is exposed using the HE that's been loaded into our main guns. Of course, it's a Gdansk, so he is most likely, he is definitely using his radar to out our destroyer. And we don't have any sort of recourse for him because we don't have a radar on board, and I guess neither does this Minotaur or Brisbane, unfortunately. And as a result, we are going to end up losing our destroyer fairly early. We're going to have to play this in a bit of a special way in order to, try and compete. One thing you may have noticed is with our shell hits, if we did get one on, I think we got one on the Gdansk, is even though we have large guns and big HE, our hits against the destroyer are not very good. They do not perform particularly well. The Golden Lion and these Dutch heavier cruisers definitely are not of the variety that you would like to use up against destroyers. They just don't counter it. However, what they do well is when you have the AP loaded, they get a pretty decent chunk, especially when you have a broadside defense. You get a good hit with the bombs, and then a follow-up salvo that ends up leaving defense with not much health remaining, though you'll see this right here, this little section right here is going to ultimately end up haunting us in this game, because it is both this defense and Gdansk who are going to end up making us regret our choices from the match. But we're going to try to engage him. As you can see, the Dutch cruisers, we're not particularly built into reload, but a 12-second reload for what are Scharnhorst size guns at the tier is pretty great. That battle cruiser dispersion sometimes works out fantastically for you. But there are definitely other times where you send out a salvo and the battlecruiser dispersion may feel like a little bit more of a cruiser dispersion, and you just kind of have to pray to the wargaming gods that you'll get the hits that you need to do. Now, as far as what we can do in this moment, I don't want to push into C as of yet, but we do have a fellow Gouden Leeuw all the way out in B. We're going to fire our HE salvo, flip over to the AP, and try to start to engage him, try to get some hits in. You know, he's pushing in rather aggressively, and if we can disable him or get some good shots into him, then we should be setting up our team for some success, as we only have to get one hit. But hey, the enemies on our side of the map are now out and about, and we can go ahead and start to engage them. Of course, you know, you could say that, you know, turret traverse is something that we should have built into, or we didn't take the reload, but, you know, we get a good hit with the bombs there, 6 of them, and then we can go ahead and start using that AP against this Worcester. We'll hold right here because it looks like he's making this turn, and if he goes fully out, then we should be able to finish him off, but actually our teammate ends up doing that. Defense deciding to smoke up because that's going to be his best bet, and our team is taking C. So overall, we're looking okay. We're starting to lose more ships, and critically, the ships that they still have all of, the destroyers, do worry me a lot, because as we were talking about earlier, the heavy cruisers are not destroyer hunters. The HE just does not perform well up against the enemy destroyers. You need a ton of time for them to be exposed for you to get in the alpha strike necessary to take them down. Just because, for, you know, various reasons, your HE not the most effective against them. Anyways, defense is on one side. We can see that there's this destroyer on the other. I'm trying to figure out which way to go, because I don't want to bunch up with the rest of my team. That's ultimately not going to end up being the best for us. My thought is, do we try to, one, be in this covered area where we can go ahead and basically cap this, use our concealment, not have to worry about anything, and get our airstrike in on this Grosser Kernfürst, who is also about to get a torpedo. So we'll let that airstrike come in. We'll finish off getting this cap, and then once we have the cap, we can start engaging the GK. As we get a triple fire on the GK, that is ultimately instantly put out because he's using fight fire with fire. Once again, the biggest counter to these ships is fight fire with fire. And now you're going to see our little ability to disappear. So, oh, never mind. Gdansk is still there. Once Gdansk goes away, you're going to see our ability just to disappear. So we fire it out, and then in about 8 seconds, we are going to drop spot. And this is the fun of this build on the Gouden Leeuw. Okay, we've dropped spot. He doesn't know where we are anymore. We go ahead and dropped our other airstrike, and we get a double fire there. And we're going to go ahead and fire our HE. And this is where, this is where, like, okay, even though the HE is the most effective part of this ship, I can't, like, if I want to maximize my damage, I can't fire it anymore at that GK until he stops burning, right? Because until he stops burning, the fire, I can't risk getting another fire on that GK, or else all of my work is going to get extinguished by fight fire with fire. We end up pulling the high cal out of this GK, and we are just waiting on our teammate to spot this GK once again. There he is, and then we can go ahead and use our AP to start engaging him. We get spotted for a little amount of time. We go ahead and flip over to the HE since those fires now have been extinguished, and we can safely fire our preferred shell once again at this GK. Also, you know, depending on where our shells were landing, we're not exactly getting the best performance of them. You can see, you know, the battlecruiser dispersion not performing as much as we would like it to, but hey, that's okay. We get our airstrike back, and we have a GK that is stuck on the island. You can see the airstrike not wanting to behave in this moment. Go ahead, finally get it dropped out. Shell's not able to quite get over, or I guess they are, but this airstrike should give us what we need to finish him off. If not, it will make him incredibly, incredibly weak for us to finish off as we come around the corner of this island, and we can push into B. We take him out, getting both the Witherer and the Arsonist. You know, a very effective ship, the Gouden Leeuw, when you are able to isolate an enemy, especially if that enemy is a battleship. You know, fire is the enemy of a battleship, and that is what Gouden Leeuw is incredibly good at. So we have our RPF. We can see defense is now pushing into C. We've already committed to coming into B, which means we need to go ahead and make the turn here and try to start engaging the defense. Defense definitely saw where we were going in that last moment, unfortunately, which means he probably knows that we're about to come around this corner. He definitely knows we're about to come around this corner, which means we should expect torpedoes from him. And we can see his smoke screen. I'm like, okay, we'll go ahead, use our sonar, push in. Hopefully he's not in his smoke screen, because if he's in his smoke screen, I won't be able to illuminate him in time, and we're just gonna have to figure something else out. But thankfully he's out of his smoke screen. He's running away. He's in a compromised position, and we are now going to go and start engaging him. You see, we got some pretty decent hits in that opening salvo, but once he angled, it became a little bit more difficult. He opens up to fire at us. We get a decent hit. We're going to go ahead and just start bow tanking these fires. I'm not going to put them out quite yet, just because I understand what I'm up against in the defense, and I don't want to risk putting them out, killing the defense, and then having a perma-fire that I have to deal with. I'd rather just take the fire damage. It can be repaired. He fires AP at us, which is unfortunate, because that's going to take pretty decent chunks out of us. But, you know, it is what it is, and at this point, he has done a very good job in this end game of pulling us off of what our objective was, which is B, leaving it a 2v1, and now we just have to try and figure out a way to win this. The only player left is that enemy Gdansk that we ended up coming up against early in the game, and you will end up seeing just what happens. But I guess I'm going to go ahead and give my final thoughts both on Gouden Leeuw and the line overall. First off, this new line is quite fun. I very much enjoy it. I can't wait for people to go out there and give it a go. It is a different play style, which is always welcome in this game, right? A different play loop is always more fun. Would I go spend the extra money to get these ships in early access? No. Don't do that. The crates, which used to be the way that we would do this, they have a terrible drop rate this time around, so I wouldn't recommend that at all. If the random bundle that you are being presented with isn't one of those good random bundles that we talked about, isn't one of the random bundles basically on the first page, I wouldn't spend any money for the random bundles. And, you know, Gouden Leeuw, I would not recommend spending the $180 that this ship would cost you if you wanted to pick it up. Like, don't worry about it. It won't be locked. It's not a Colbert. It will come back for free, like Louisiana, because it's part of the tech tree. I don't like that they are locking the tech tree ships behind these large sums of money, but this is where we are. So me, all I can do is recommend to not engage with it and just to kind of look at the whales and wave. But guys, that's all I have for you today. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Are you excited for these ships to come out of early access? What do you think? If you liked videos like this, as you can tell if you're watching the game up above, we are not going to end up winning this game. The time is just going to end up rolling out. But guys, let me know, what do you think? If you like videos like this, as always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. See ya.